Okay, let's get the Snumpster fire rolling. So, I figured I'd go ahead and show you the setup process so you sort of understand what's going on, but at the same time, I'm gonna try not to bore you with all the minutia. And I already messed up. Okay, let's go. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is choose a scenario, and what this controls is basically what equipment we start with, what our technology level is, and what events can happen in the game. So I made us a custom one where we start with nothing, have a Neolithic technology level, and we won't have random colonists join for no reason. So next we choose our storyteller. Cassandra Classic tells the story in a pretty predictable way, and generates events that get harder as we go. Phoebe Chillax does pretty much the same thing, but she leaves a lot of space between devastating events that we can rebuild. But we're not going to use either of them. We're going to use Randy Random. And as you can imagine, he's going to generate his events pretty much at random, which means that sometimes this is going to be a cakewalk and other times we're going to be fighting for our lives. And to make sure we fight for our lives, I'm going to put him on the hardest difficulty, and I'm going to turn on commitment mode, which basically means that I can't make any extra save files to go back and undo any mistakes. So if someone dies, they're dead. So now we have to generate our Rimworld, and it works like a Minecraft where you use a seed. So we're just going to go ahead and... So we can play the same planet over and over if we want to, but I'm just going to leave everything else the same because they don't really matter, and then I'm just going to let this load for a minute. Okay, so now we just have to pick a place on the planet to build our colony. And as you can see, just like real life, the planet is made of hexagons, and each of the hexagons has its own properties. Some of which we do want, some we don't, so I'm going to take a minute to go and find us a place to live. Okay, so I found this decent place to live. It's in the mountains, so we'll be able to build into the terrain a little bit, but it's also kind of at the edge of the mountain range, so that way if we have to send a caravan out, they won't get slowed down too much. It also has granite, the strongest stone type, so we can build some pretty sturdy structures. And it has a decent growing period so we can farm, but it doesn't last all year because that would be too boring. And really importantly, we can forage for berries in the beginning because we're going to have a hard time with food. And lastly, we need some colonists, which are normally randomly generated, but here at the bottom I installed a mod called Prepare Carefully, which lets us make any colonists that we want. So we're just going to delete all of these random ones. Over here are some colonists I prepared earlier. Okay, so of course these are all built out of the information you sent me, so I'm just going to kind of click through them so you can pause and look at them and judge each other's choices. That's it. So let's head out. The six of you awake in your cryosleep sarcophagi to the sounds of sirens and ripping metal. You barely get to the escape pods before the ship is torn apart. Sometime later you land on this unknown Rimworld. Only a few of you escaped. Now, after a harrowing journey on foot with no close friends to turn to, you must build a new home in the wilderness like your ancestors did. Neat. So here we come. Ah, look at us, we're beautiful. Actually, this is the way I was born. Okay, so let's get a look around, see what we have to work with out here. Oh, this is tempting. So there's only one way in, which would be really easy to defend for the most part. And we have a little building that we could actually start in. The only trouble is that we're kind of next to a bunch of caves, and it can spawn insects, which are a pain in the ass. Oh, yeah, these guys. So, they're inconvenient. You can literally spawn inside your buildings if you're building under mountains, basically. And it can turn bad real quick, so gonna try to avoid that. Out here, we'll probably use some of these later on, just little steam geysers. It's a really good way to get electricity, but that's for later. So, there's not much else that's really that defensible out here. I guess we could build in here, but this water is kind of a pain in the ass to work around. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're just gonna stick with this. It looks pretty promising. We'll just have to deal with the insects if we have to. When we have to. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is make a stockpile zone, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's just where we're gonna keep all our sweet stuff. So let's see. Yeah, let's just stick it right here. And what we're gonna do is we're just going to set it to allow everything. So we just have all our stuff in one place for now. We can change that later. And then we're going to put a door here so it takes less time to get to and from the stockpile. So fortunately, we don't have to control everything our colonists do. We can just assign them jobs and they'll take care of it in sort of a priority order. So everything on the left is a higher priority than everything on the right. And then I'm going to set manual priorities so it goes through and does all the ones, then all the twos, and so on. And this is going to take a while. Okay, that's that. So now I want to build some doors for our little house, but we don't have any material. So I'm going to have everyone chop down these trees, so that way we have some wood. But the opening that's on the left-hand side there in the caves, I want to build out of something stronger. So we're just going to deconstruct a piece of the wall to build the door out of it. And since I am incapable of plant work of any kind, including just chopping down trees, we're just going to have me just haul a little piece of something over to the stockpile zone, so I'll just be over by our base. Okay, so someone is already starving. Zach is starving, so we need to find him some food. Alright, so there's a lovely bunch of berry bushes right here, so we're going to mark them for harvest and tell Zach to work on that right now, and he'll eat as soon as he has berries next to him. So, berries are fine for now, that's how we're going to have to survive, but it's very time consuming and they're not very efficient nutritionally, so we're going to make a crafting spot so we can make some recurve bows to do some hunting. So we're going to build those until we have 2. And as long as there's 2 bows in our stockpile zone, we won't make bows. But right now, we're going to make a roof over our zone. That's not going to keep everything completely under there from deteriorating, but it's better than just having them stop in the open. Now, we're going to designate some sleeping spots. None of us are going to be happy about sleeping on the floor, but we don't have furniture, so we're going to sleep on the floor. And we have more starvation. Okay, I'm starving, but we have berries because Zach is a nice lady. Alright. Go forth. Consume berries, my son. Since starvation looks like it's going to be a theme for a while, we need to go ahead and queue up some more berries for harvesting. Alright, now that we've got some raw material laying around, let's set out blueprints for the doors. Okay, constantly marking berries for harvesting is becoming a pain, so I'm going to make an additional crafting spot so that Kylie and I can both make bows at the same time so we can get them out more quickly, so we can get to hunting more quickly, which is a lot more efficient. So this is inconvenient. Josh has gotten food poisoning from eating some berries. It's not life-threatening or anything, but it will cause him to walk a lot more slowly, cause him some pain, making him sad. But most importantly, he's going to be vomiting constantly, which is going to make him get hungry a lot more quickly, and cause him to need more food, which is a problem since we're still struggling to maintain a constant food supply. Ah, right. So I didn't disassemble nearly enough of the marble walls, which I should have realized before, but we're just going to have to make this door wood for now and hope it's good enough. And at the same time, I finished the first bow. And since I am the strongest shooter in the colony, I'm just going to go ahead and have myself equip it. Make sure I am set to hunt. Okay, let's pop some jive-ass turkeys. Alright, so successful hunting trip. Now we're going to be eating these things raw for a while because we can't cook yet. And that's going to give us a pretty significant penalty, because, believe it or not, colonists don't generally like eating corpses. Unless it's a human corpse, and unless it's Kylie, because she's a cannibal. Now, before we can build a stove, we're going to need some steel. Fortunately, in one of the nearby caves, there's a pretty good vein of compacted steel, which we'll probably have Ryan work on pretty soon. So that's the end of the first day out here on the rim for us. After a long day of carrying berries around for most of us, it's time for some well-earned rest. So as a small reward to ourselves for surviving the first day, I think we can afford ourselves some small creature comforts. Okay. So, we're going to build ourselves a small table, because eating off the ground gives us a small mood penalty, so that's an easy enough thing to avoid. So in the morning, we find a squirrel just outside of our shelter, so we're going to make sure that I hunt that the moment I get up. And soon afterwards, several of our other colonists have gotten up. Kylie's gotten to work on another bow, Zach is starting his day with a morning walk, and Michael has noticed that there is a dead turkey out here from yesterday's hunting trip. What probably happened is that while I was hunting, I injured another one of the turkeys without actually killing it right away, but it soon after bled out. And before too long, we dispatched the local squirrel, so we can add that to the stockpile. Now it looks like Zach's just wandering around aimlessly because he doesn't really have anything else to do. So this is probably a good time for us to get started mining that steel vein so we can build ourselves a stove so we can stop eating corpses and berries. So now Zach is heading off to work on the mine, and Kylie's just finished up another bow. Meanwhile, I'm heading out on another turkey hunting trip. And Josh and Ryan are still in bed. So as you can see, even when the game is running at triple speed, mining is taking us an excruciatingly long time. That's because for the most part, we're pretty much useless at mining. Fortunately, Ryan has gotten up and has decided to help out. Michael has just gotten back with his turkey, and the still recovering Josh has gotten up so he can go lie down. Now unfortunately we can't yet build our table and chairs because we only have 11 units of wood, so we're going to have to mark some more trees to be chopped down. And since Michael has finished his hauling trip, he's headed down into the mine to help out, so now we'll be done in no time. So since it looks like it's going to take a while to get the 80 units of steel we need to build a stove, we're going to go ahead and change the torch blueprint to a campfire because we can also use those for cooking. And even though Josh is in a poor mood and probably needs the rest he's having right now, we're going to go ahead and tell him to get to work on cutting down trees because we're going to need the wood desperately very soon. Now another important detail I need to mention is that we can't actually cook our animal corpses until they've been butchered. And to do that, we're going to have to build ourselves a butcher table, which is going to cost an additional 95 units of wood. And it looks like I've already headed back with another turkey, so as soon as we get that butcher table going, we're going to have plenty of raw meat for us to cook. So now we have a pair of bows sitting in our stockpile. Now a colonist's hunting ability is determined both by their shooting skill and their animal skill, so that actually makes Kylie and Josh some pretty strong hunters, so we're going to tell them to equip the bows. And already, that's another turkey for the corpse pile. So it looks like we're starting to struggle with maintaining our colonists' moods, which is bad because when the colonist's mood gets too low, they run the risk of having a mental break. In the best case scenario, this can just cause them to stop working for a little while, but in the worst case, it'll send them into a murderous rampage, which we would like to avoid. So we're going to build a state-of-the-art entertainment center to hopefully raise their mood slightly. That's going to be a hoopstone ring, which is a hoop on a stick that you throw a rock through. So before long, I returned from my hunting trip and decided to work on another bow. I also seemed to decide it's a great time to make a move on Kylie. Unfortunately, she didn't seem to appreciate it, which gives us both a minor debuff. Soon after, Josh built the hoopstone ring. A little while later, Ryan senses an ancient danger as he's heading outside. Now what this is essentially a buried ruin that's been sealed for a very long time, and if we open it up, it could contain something extremely dangerous, or beneficial, or nothing very interesting at all. So perhaps later we'll crack it open and see what's inside. So as the light fades, several of the colonists decide to give the shiny new hoopstone ring a try. And since we're collecting wood at a decent pace, we're going to go ahead and lay down our butcher table blueprint so we can get to butchering these turkeys. So after a somewhat uneventful day, our colony decides it's time to get some rest. Just as Josh wakes up on the third morning, Randy Random finally drops us our first event. In this case, it's a Thrumbo wandering around the area. Thrumbo's fur and horns are extremely valuable to traders, so we could try to hunt this one down and get those and make some money. But a Thrumbo is extremely difficult to take down, and they're very dangerous in a fight, so we're just going to leave this one be. Now I think it's just about time for us to make a serious improvement to our food supply. So we're going to drop a growing zone right outside the base so we can begin farming. And instead of potato plants, we're actually going to farm rice plants, because they grow much more quickly and are a little less risky to keep around because of that. Now the reason I put it outside the base is because I want to keep the interior of the base free for additional constructions. After making some adjustments to the job priorities, we can see Ryan already beginning to sow rice plants. Because we've already hunted all the turkeys and we have a butcher table on the way, it's about time that we queue up some more small game for hunting. We're going to stick with smaller animals for now, because when you attack larger animals, you run the risk of turning the entire herd of the manhunter and having them attack the colony, and right now we just don't have the defenses to handle that kind of thing, so we're going to play it safe. Now we have plenty of recurve bows for now, so we're going to cancel those crafting jobs for the time being so we don't inadvertently use resources we might need later. Kylie and Zach have the farm running smoothly, while Josh bags the colony a rat. Our colony takes a huge step forward as Ryan finishes building the butcher table, which we're going to put to use immediately. Now instead of taking to best stockpile, we're going to set this build to drop on the floor, so that way whoever is using the butcher table won't constantly walk back and forth the stockpile zone, and will instead just butcher creatures over and over, leaving the materials on the floor to be hauled later. Now nobody's actually going to use the butcher table until they're assigned to cooking. So we're going to take a moment and set Zach, Josh, and Kylie as our colony's cooks. So I know I said we were going to use the campfire to do our cooking, but as it turns out we already have enough steel to build the stove, so we're just going to do that instead. However, we are still going to keep the campfire around, so that way nobody has to sleep in the cold, and we can avoid that mood penalty. We're also going to allow the table to be built since we finally have some extra wood laying around. As our colony maintains our farm, our farmer's plant skill will go up. That means in the future we'll be able to plant healroot, which will get us access to herbal medicine. But for now though, if we want any herbal medicine, we'll have to forage for healroot in the wild. Just as Ryan is in the middle of constructing our dining set, we're confronted with our first emergency. Zach is getting hunted by a warg. This could easily prove to be a deadly encounter if we don't handle this carefully, so we're going to draft every colonist except for Ryan because he's incapable of violence, and we're going to try and fight the warg together. Just as we anticipated, the warg is catching up to Zach really quickly. Fortunately, a well-placed shot from Michael slows the warg down just enough to give Zach an extra moment to get away. Unfortunately, it doesn't last very long because the warg is upon them almost immediately. Zach is incapacitated just as Kylie arrives. So now Michael and Kylie are working to try and prevent any more damage to Zach. Some more reinforcements arrive, and we're finally able to down the warg. At this point, Zach is bleeding pretty heavily and only has 4 hours to live. We could try to take him back to base and treat him there, but that would probably take too long, so we're going to lay down a sleeping spot right here and tend to him immediately. Josh and Ryan are our two doctors, but Josh is much closer, so he's going to do the treatment. So we're going to have him rescue Zach. And then he's immediately going to provide first aid. Unfortunately, we don't have any medicine on hand, so Josh is going to have to improvise. Josh should at least be able to stop the bleeding, but Zach runs a very high risk of getting an infection. But there's nothing we can really do about it at this point, so we're just going to have to hope for the best. We can see that Michael didn't fare that much better than Zach, but he can at least still walk, and he's almost home, so we should be able to have Ryan patch him up very soon. That is, if Michael didn't decide to have a mental break 20 yards away from the shelter. The mental break he's having is called Berserk, which means even though he's in the process of bleeding out, he's going to try to attack anybody that he sees. So now we're left in the awkward position where we need to try to save him without damaging him any further. So we're going to draft Kylie. We're going to try to see if we can get her to down Michael without killing him. We can at least be thankful that Michael didn't go berserk anywhere near Josh or Zach. Fortunately, Kylie manages to get the jump on Michael and take him down without much additional harm. Now she can rescue Michael right away, and Ryan will be able to get to work. Now that he's done tending to Zach, we can delete the sleeping spot and have Josh take Zach home. We just have to hope that he doesn't also have a mental break. With their patients tended and safe at home, our doctors sit down at the new table for a dinner of raw meat. Within just a few moments, the colony is laid down for some much-needed rest. So it's been a long 3 days for our colonists, but we've all managed to survive and lay the foundations. Next time we'll see about Zach and Michael's recovery, as well as what else Randy Random decides to throw at us.